Tekken 8 Season 2 is just a few weeks away, and we are expecting a huge balance update to open up the season. So with that said, today I thought I'll talk about my boy and the current state of Steve in Tekken 8. Has Steve had a good season? What's a verdict on this character in terms of strength? And just overall just talk about the character and how I feel about him going into Season 2. So when we first saw the Steve changes in Tekken 8, all of us were worried, right? Down forward 2 was taken away from us. It now guarantees only outstanding 1-2 or Masaji. They took away the Shiro combo, which honestly doesn't make sense to me up until now. That combo was very difficult to do. Like even as a Steve main, I would only land the Shiro combo maybe 3 out of 5 times, even 2 out of 5 times. It was a very, very difficult combo and it didn't even do all that much damage. Down forward 2 is linear, honestly, so I think this is something Namco should consider bringing back. I don't think it will affect Steve all that much, honestly. And we're also speaking about how they've taken a lot of Steve's identity away by taking away down forward 2 as well as while standing 2. So while standing 2 back in Tekken 7 was also a counter hit launcher, but now it turned into a full 13 frame punish with while standing 2-2, which takes him into his new Lionheart stance as well. So I feel as though these two moves have taken away a lot of Steve's identity as the counter hit punching paragon. That title, like I've always said, now belongs to Brian, even King. I think these two characters are way more effective at counter hit launching than Steve himself, which is just honestly very hard to believe. Like even Lee, Steve, Brian, all these are way more effective at a counter hit game than Steve. So this was very worrying, right? Seeing all these moves taken away from us. We also saw that back 1 did only 12 damage on counter hit, and everyone freaked out about this, like, oh, they nerfed the damage on back 1. But it ended up actually doing way more damage for the overall combo than it did back in Tekken 7. So back 1 in Tekken 7 does way less damage. The maximum combo, right? The fillers into Ender, all that stuff does way less than the full combo in Tekken 8. However, back 1 on its own does way less damage in Tekken 8 at only 12 damage as compared to Tekken 7. I think Tekken 7 was what? I think 17, 16 maybe, if I'm not mistaken. I think I have to re-download Tekken 7 just to be sure. So I think we freaked out a bit too much on this, but it's still okay. Another huge aspect to Steve that was changed was his war splats. They nerfed back 1 too, which gave a war splat before, but now it takes you into Lionheart stance, and they also nerfed Sonic Fang, which does not war splat anymore. Like this, in my opinion, was a criminal change, bro. Like in what universe did Namco think nerfing Sonic Fang to not war splat was a good idea? Like, can somebody just make it make sense to me? Like, what is the reason why? Was it busted that Sonic Fang was splat? Like, this is a character that does not have a 15 frame launcher, mind you, and he only had Sonic Fang as a big punish outside of forward 1+2, and they took away the war splat. Like, what? So like this hurts. Like till now for me, this hurts. So back 1-2, war splat taken away, and Sonic Fang war splat taken away as well. Not just that, down back 3-2 as well was nerfed. Does not give a knockdown anymore, takes you into Lionheart stance. When I saw this, bro, I think this amongst all the nerfs is what hit me the hardest. Like even worse than down forward 2. Like one of Steve's strongest game outside of, you know, the counter hit he had back in Tekken 7 was his wall, like his wall pressure. His 50-50 was scary at the wall with, you know, the stomp, because his stomp gave him insane Oki. He had the war splat, he had real war splat potential out of down back 3-2 with a knockdown. He could actually combo like very hard stuff, like high level stuff. He could actually juggle at the wall at certain angles, and it was just a very, very strong tool for mix-ups at the wall. Like Steve in neutral has nothing in terms of like something that's scary. Of course, outside of back 1, there's nothing scary, but at the wall, he had that down back 3-2. But now they took away the knockdown, and it only just gave a mix-up that took you into Lionheart, you know, and gives you the guard break mix-up with the mid. So honestly, the knockdown was more valuable than the Lionheart. But however, this is something that has changed for Steve, and this is something we have accepted for the character. Like, it kind of works in terms of the changes they went with Steve, giving him Lionheart stance, you know, to give him quite another layer of depth also, I would say. But in the grand scheme of things, all these have just been overall nerfs. So in terms of changes from Tekken 7 to Tekken 8, Steve overall was nerfed hard, really hard. It was very hard to accept for most people, like me inclusive, because they're so used to having that Steve compact gameplay, very people respecting Steve for the time, but that changed. The overall system of the game as well, having stuff like power crush hit engagers, thank God those are gone now. Power crushes being safe when they absorb hits, moves giving you, plus 17 for free, plus 5 for free, giving you free mix-ups or easy ways to get in against Steve, guaranteeing you mix-up. So it isn't really the same as he was back in Tekken 7. It was a hard pill to swallow. But I think as time passed, over time, they gave him some few changes, like being able to not go into Lionheart, being able to cancel out of Lionheart. These are some very good quality of life changes, the things that Steve needed. They buffed his hit smash as well. It did like 40 damage before and now it does 50. So some really good changes Steve received. And so in terms of character strength, some people put respect on Steve, most of the Pakistan community than any other. The Koreans don't think Steve is as strong as Pakistan says he is. So there's a huge divide on the strength of Steve in Tekken 8. In terms of success, this also goes back to Pakistan, because the most successful Steve player competitively has been Newman CH. This man just showed up out of nowhere on the scene and was kicking ass, bro. He took tournament after tournament in Pakistan, and most of the time he faced off against Aslan, and he beat Aslan multiple times. And Aslan also places Steve a bit higher on his tier list, I think mostly because of Newman CH. Like, this man showed what Steve is capable of doing in this game. Now, most of you will say, I know it's just, Newman CH proving how strong the character is and the work that he's putting in Steve, because he's a loyal Steve main. But honestly, I do think Steve is good. Not comparatively to the top tiers of the game. Like, obviously you can't compare to the Ninas, the Jins, those characters are simply busted, but he's a very good character in general. And Newman CH also has contributed like 90% of the success of Steve in season 1 because of the tournaments that he's won. There are other Steve players out there. We have seen a bit of low high play Steve, not much success. We've seen Bupaman, who's been cooking online, hasn't traveled a lot. He recently played at the Tokyo Cup, the Japanese tournament recently, but he didn't do well. He got blown up. But in terms of Steve representation, the most Steve we've seen is Newman CH. We also had Abel de Maestro from, I think he's Bolivian. Apologies if I'm mistaken. He made grand finals in the big, South American tourney. Faced off against a Lydia player. Sadly, he lost. That was some good Steve representation again. But other than that, we haven't seen that many Steves overall in general. So I would say Steve has had a successful season. Way more than any other characters we don't see. Like, we don't see forbour, we don't see Jax. So he has had an overall good season, and I just think he'll get better going into season 2. I don't think Namco are going to insanely buff Steve. I just think they're going to give him a few quality of life improvements. Like, honestly, I will do with buffs, such as giving him back his identity from down 4-2 or starting to being counter-hit launchers again. But something just tells me Namco won't really go hard with the Steve buffs going into season 2, but hopefully I am wrong. So other than that, I do like what they've done with Steve in Tekken 8 in terms of giving him stuff like the clinch during the hit mechanic. I think this gives him another layer of individuality or added depth to his gameplay. Basically, the clinch, of course, is part of boxing if you do not know. So it's a cool aspect of his hit mechanic, giving him clinch mix-ups. Although I do feel his hit gauge, I do feel his clinch throws take away too much of his hit. Like, even when you break them, they take a bunch of hit. So adjustments to the hit level would be good for our boy. So in my closing thoughts, like I said, I do think he's had a good, successful season. He's been one of the, I would say, recent winners in terms of patch notes. Quite alright, he hasn't received any huge buffs, but throughout season 1, he's been getting some good quality of life improvements, some few buffs here and there. And I think going into S2, he will just get better. But that's just my thought. I do love my boy Steve. I'm looking to see what he gets in season 2. We did see his new move in the trailer, kind of like maybe a new hit mechanic, or a new hit gimmick that he has. I'm thinking it's something to do that will help out with mixing up his clinch throws, at least I'm guessing. So yeah, I'm excited to see what they do with my boy going into season 2, but Any other Steve mains watching this, how do you feel about the overall state of our boy in season 1? Like, how do you feel about his journey so far throughout the game? Do you think he was hit too hard in Tekken 8? Do you think he needs to be reverted back to Tekken 7 state with all his other stuff? You know, like Warsplat, Back 1-2, Warsplat, Sonic Fang. Like, what do you think was too much? What do you think he needs more? So talk to me and let's have this discussion and just talk about our boy. So that is Steve, boys. I will cover Leroy next, then Lars, and then Raven, obviously. Let's bring out these videos up until season 2 drops next month. So anyway, guys, if you made it this far, thank you so much. As usual, don't forget to doria that like button, subscribe if you're new, and may the frame be ever in your favor. GG.